Oh, hi everyone, I'm Juan. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Aalto University, and today I'm going to share with you some of the ongoing work from using the mirror game paradigm in MEG hyperscanning settings. So we know that over the last decade or so, it has been suggested that in order to understand the neural mechanisms underlying complex real-time social interactions, studying two interacting brains simultaneously is needed. And the simultaneous measurement of the brain activity from two or more individuals is known as hyperscanning. In the case of MEG, magnetoencephalography, the first hyperscanning setup was developed at Aalto University and is summarized in these two papers by Pamela Baez, Andres Danov, and colleagues. And we are currently using that setup alongside an adapted version of the mirror game paradigm to try to elucidate the brain signatures underlying action observation, audience effects, leader-follower coordination, and joint improvisation in interacting dyads. I guess by now you are all experts in the mirror game after Asaf's demonstration. The mirror game, well, in this case, is a simplified version proposed by Lior, Noy, and colleagues in 2011. So here we're presenting the data from 10 pairs of participants performing a one-dimension mirror game. So they're moving only the finger in the vertical dimension. While they were doing this, we were measuring MEG simultaneously from the two interacting subjects, and we were tracking the finger kinematics using accelerometers. And this was done under several instructed conditions, including leader-follower, synchronous movement, moving observe, observing movement, moving in isolation, and of course, resting state. From the behavioral side, we found that the finger kinematics agreed with the instructed roles in the task, and this is shown by these phase-locking vectors computed from the preprocessed accelerometer signals. From the brain oscillations point of view, we found that rolandic theta and superior parietal beta were stronger in followers than in leaders. Here, the brain parcels or brain regions in blue are those that showed a significant difference in alpha power across conditions. And we are currently running some follow-up analysis to try to understand whether these power modulations are mediated by behavior. We also observe widespread alpha-band power suppressions when in interaction. So interaction here was the average of the interacting conditions, leader, follower, and sync, compared to individual action. We know that the suppression in alpha power is considered to be a marker of cortical excitability, release of cortical inhibition, and enhanced cognitive processing, and has also been related to movement coordination with a partner in a few studies. For instance, this pattern at the bottom was the one obtained by Guillaume Dumas and colleagues. For a similar contrast, in this case, they were comparing movement coordination with a virtual partner against individual action. So it could be the case that our finding is just one more example of alpha oscillations playing a key role in movement coordination with a partner. However, when we compare the observed action, so moving while being observed, against the individual action, we obtain a similar widespread power suppression. And indeed, when we contrasted the interacting condition versus observed action, we saw that the only statistical difference between these two is restricted to the right occipital areas, which show a decrease in power in interaction compared to observed action. And this is a result that could simply be due to the typical visual alpha suppression contralateral to the attended visual field. In this case, would be the left side that in the interacting condition has a hand that needs to be attended to. So perhaps the widespread alpha power suppression we see here facilitates the processing of the social context of the task or integration of the task partner or the observer as an action partner, similarly during the interaction and when moving while being observed. In the beta band, we also obtain some widespread power suppressions, but these occur in actual movement coordination in interaction compared to both individual and observed actions, so the contrast at the extremes of the slide. And in the middle, we see that we also found a left DPJ suppression when comparing observed action versus isolated action. So it seems that beta power might be more related than alpha to actual coordination processes or to aspects of the experience of being interacting with another person. We also computed pairwise intra-brain connectivity at the source level using the weighted phase-lag index. And with this, we observe a reduction in the alpha-band-mediated connectivity while interacting compared to individual isolated action. And this result is very similar to the one obtained by Mario Zimmerman and colleagues in their EEG mirror game study. And I would expect Kiveli to mention more about this in the coming talk. And in both studies, this reduction involved occipital, temporal, parietal, and frontal brain regions. So it could be that this result may be linked to reduced monitoring, regulation of one's own actions in mirror game interactions, which is something I could relate, and probably some of you could relate to your experiences when performing mirror games in dance improvisation classes. And it has been also suggested by Ivana Konvalinka's group in a couple of papers. But it is important to know that we found widespread differences in alpha power between the same conditions, which means we have significant differences in the signal-to-noise ratio that could confound these results, and we should be cautious with this. And the time is running up, so, well, there are many additional steps we are planning to take with this research. And of course, a lot of people to thank for their outstanding contributions, and thank you for your attention. I think you're muted, just in case.
Cool. Sorry about that. I'm still getting used to it. So we have time for questions, and I already saw a hand of Peter. Yes.
You're allowed. We like
Yes.
you. If we didn't, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Throw me out.
Exactly.
That's so reassuring. Thank you for the talk. That's really exciting. Also exciting with the hyperscanning cross-brain connectivity stuff, I thought. I was just wondering, do you have the data on the movement of the fingers?
Yes. So first of all, even if we are doing hyperscanning here, we haven't show you yet intra-brain connectivity results. This was also only a connectivity within single brains in different interacting conditions. We do have the accelerations from the fingers, and with those so far, we have just double check that people are performing the task they should be performing, so that the phase lags between leaders and followers match what they should be matching, and that they are in sync when they are moving synchronously, jointly improvising. With that data, we also saw that people move slower when they're coordinating with another person compared to when they're being observed or when they're moving in isolation. And at the moment, we are trying to correlate that data with the brain signals, but that's ongoing work.
Because I was just thinking that the real connectivity is probably not from brain to brain, but from brain to finger to brain. And I guess the functional connectivity measures you use, depending a bit on which they are, should actually be able to handle that. So I'm just wondering if you could do a two brains and movement kind of connectivity analysis, and what do you think of that idea? Maybe it's a stupid idea.
I think it's a good idea. We're thinking something like that with canonical correlations between the two brains and the behavior from the two people. But we still need to work a little bit more with on that path. But yeah, I agree that if there is some connectivity or correlation between the brain patterns, it should be mediated by behavior, and we should take that into account.
Cool. Any more questions? Yes, Julia.
Just so if you do that, maybe you want to look at the harmonics also of the frequencies in Dumas publications and the relations with the harmonics. I had a curiosity if you would look below 4 Hz in terms of interbrain synchrony. Because you showed us data between 4 and 7, but did you look below 4?
Yes, we did look below 4, and we did not find any differences in the alpha power or connectivity below 4. Yes.
Okay, well, meanwhile, I also have a question related to the lower frequency. So I noticed that you mentioned in the very beginning, I think there was also some theta effect of the leader follower, and then the theta disappeared from the story. So I'm curious what you think, well, if I'm correct about this, what you think is potentially the role of theta, because beta you mentioned has maybe really to do with coordination, and then alpha, which is the alpha suppression, also had a role, but theta was a bit left out, I felt. But yeah.
So here I tried to put together a lot of results. The first bunch was comparing leaders and followers mostly, and in that the theta oscillations seem to play a role. We're still trying to do the correlations of behavior here to see if these differences in theta are maybe related to differential kinematic processing between leaders and followers. But then I tried to switch to try to compare interactions versus observed actions and individual actions. And in that it seems that theta oscillations at least don't behave differently across those conditions. And that agrees with what Kimberly will probably show in the upcoming talk.
Great. Any other questions?
I will ask
Yeah.
a question.
Oh.
Hi, Juan. I would be curious I saw the word decoupled somewhere on one of the slides. And I'm obviously a little bit biased. I'm super interested in what happens when things don't necessarily synchronize, when people do become decoupled. It's not just decoupled from the self, but decoupled from the other. Do you have anything you can say about that? I'd be particularly interested in what sort of other predictions or results you have that speak to that.
Well, I think our results are just showing the decrease intra-brain connectivity in the alpha band in interaction compared to individual action. At least some of the simulations that Ivana Kombalinka's group has done with Kuramoto oscillators seem to suggest that in order to have these patterns that we see in behavior, there is when you have this strong inter-oscillators or inter-brain coupling in interaction, those are followed by decreasing the coupling within the oscillators themselves. Well, if you go into the alpha band connectivity literature, a decrease in alpha band connectivity has also been related to reductions in cognitive control. So maybe those two things could be linked. Maybe we exert less cognitive control when we are interacting. That could be in some way related to this decoupled self idea.
Yeah, no, that was exactly where I was heading. So that's the perfect answer. Thank you so much.
Cool. I think Asaf was also interested in or not.
It's just because I was so quick understanding when they reduced alpha band some results were about single brains and some were about connectivity between the brains. It just went so fast. So I was trying to understand, you mixed both, or was it just I was like the lost person?
Yes, sorry. There are a lot of results here, but they are all within single brains. I didn't show yet any inter-brain connectivity. The connectivity is also between single brains.
Okay. No, I think
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I guess if there are no more questions, then thanks so much, Juan. Great job.
Thank you.